sloppy chord playing can sneak in over time, or it can start right from the beginning. Let's put the focus back on chords and start tightening up your playing today. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. Your chords are a mess. There's so many things that can go wrong with playing chords. What's the first one? Well, they could be out of tune. The guitar is never perfectly in tune anyway. But the fact that we have these 6 strings, they have 6 different tensions. That's 6 different problems we have to deal with just to play one chord. They all got to work together. Something to handle there. How about thumb placement? How about hand strength? How about finger position? There's a lot of adjustments that your unconscious mind is dealing with, and you're dealing with it in split-second time frames. How about rhythms? Your rhythms can be off. Now that you've played your chord once, what happens? You got to do it again. It's the when. When do I do this stuff? The when of playing a chord can be infinitely complex. You can play these notes late. You can play them early. You can do combinations of both just for the style of music that you're playing. And this sometimes, if you're not on both of them, you can leave your songs with that feeling that sometimes things aren't right. They're not sounding great, but you can't put your finger on it. You can't pinpoint the problem. We're dealing with feel, we're dealing with swing, intentionally playing chords late or early. And doing that can be a very slippery slope. Do a little too much, it's not going to sound too good. You have to do just the right amount. Another thing we got to deal with when we're playing rhythm: clicking, muting notes, things not coming out the way that you would want them to be. I hate when I play a chord and I'm ready to do that strum, and then it just sounds like I hear a bunch of buzz, right? Or I play it and the strings that I want to hear, they don't come out. You accidentally are touching strings that you don't intend to. Your fingers move a little bit to the left, or a little bit to the right. You got some big problems. So let's talk about that. What's the problems of playing just a single chord? We're not even getting into chord progressions yet. What are the problems with playing a single chord? What can go wrong? Well, let's see here. You get the right frets. If you don't have the frets right, your chord's wrong. If you push down too hard on a chord, you're out of tune. If you don't push down hard enough, you get buzzing. Touch the wrong string, you're muting important notes. And sometimes chords, they don't last long enough, as long as you would want them to. They fizzle out. Beginners have a really hard time with this. They can spend minutes on just getting one chord right. And to do something in time, they don't even want to touch that. I can't even get the chord straight yet. How could I play it in a song? Intermediate and advanced players, they can just ignore problems. This happens all the time because before you know it, that song's on to something else. So if you got a chord that's not so great, well, it happened, but I'm past it now. See a lot of that. Another problem with playing chords is changing chords, moving from one chord to the next. What are the problems with this? Beginners, they're always late. They're always trying to get there in time, and it's never right on time. Before you know it, that song has left you in the dust. You thought you were playing the song. And the next thing you know, you're playing catch up. And playing catch up is terrible. You start speeding the chords up in a row. You want to play all those chords in a row, but the problem is they're all out of time until you can finally catch up to where the song is at the moment. You get a series of chords that are all at the wrong time. Terrible. Beginners, just stop and jump back on when you're on time. Silence is a big trick with this. Silence is your friend. When you're not playing, no one knows whether you were supposed to be playing there or not. Only you. or maybe the members of your band. But if you get lost, just stop playing and listen. Wait for the part of the song that you're comfortable with and then jump back in again. Advanced players with playing chord progressions, you all know those little quick chords, and they're tough to play. And every time you play them, you kind of fudge them a little bit, right? You get a few of the notes, but the rest of them, you do something to cover them up, or you leave a couple of the notes out because it's too difficult to play in that amount of time. How about moving from chord to chord? It's one of the most challenging things that we do as guitar players. The majority of players I've come across have settled. They've settled for just okay. I'm okay at moving from chords to chords. I get by. It works. But when you hear someone who's a fantastic rhythm player, it's different, isn't it? You can tell right away. It's impossible to ignore when the rhythms are right on and the chords are super clear. So let's get to that point. Let's be honest about our chord playing. I'll make a deal with you. Let's not settle for junked up chords anymore. We're going to move forward. One of the things I have for you to help you with this is a guide. It's called Guide to Clear Sounding Chords. If your chords don't sound great, it's a checklist. It's free. It's easy. You'll know all the basics. You know every adjustment you need to play clean and clear guitar chords. Super simple. It's over at playguitaracademy.com/chord guide. Links in the description. But you could also join the Academy. The Academy, I'm super happy about the Academy right now. It's on. The Academy's on fire. Okay, it's alive. You can take a listen to this podcast, watch the video on YouTube, and then head over to the Academy and get my part 2 videos where we take a deep dive into this very topic. And I give you all the tabs for this lesson, the backing tracks, and all the new exercises you can use, and you can master all of these topics, not just this week, but every week we do this. But you also get premium roadmap videos that take you step by step from beginner to advanced, from zero to hero. It's awesome. I watch, and the players know who they are, right? I watch struggling players that come in struggling at first. They work through this roadmap every week, and it's scary. It's like, have you ever seen someone really young and they learn a new language quickly? It's like that. They learn the language of being a musician very, very quickly. We also do weekly group live lessons. Don't miss these. This is where I personally take you through all this stuff, all the courses. And I just recently, within the past month, revamped the whole site. It's awesome. I'm really proud of it. So it's only $24 a month with all of that. You get more than what you put into it. And also I've got this new community coming, and I'm not going to wait on that one. It's like a beta community, but it's so awesome. I'm just going to put it out this week. So there's a new community coming out where we've got live rooms, games, challenges, all sorts of kind of stuff. So if you're not in the Academy, I am super ready for you to be there right now. It's very, very cool. Let's go ahead and get into some of these exercises here. We're going to talk about the easiest way to change chords smoothly and clearly. When we play chords, most of the time, we just go from one chord to the next, and we hope for the best. We never really pay attention to how they're performed. We never really listen to how they sound. Try this out. Record yourself on your computer, on a digital audio workstation. Play to a click, and you'll get a visual representation of what you played right on the track. You will quickly see how your chords are doing, especially your rhythm, how accurate your chord timing is. And maybe you have a rhythm problem, but that's not all it is. It may not be just a rhythm problem. You could have good time, but if your execution on chords is sloppy, it's going to throw you off. That's going to ruin your time, sloppy chords. So I'm going to tell you what's so easy about this way I have to start changing chords smoothly and clearly. If you just never forget these 3 things I'm about to show you, just 3, your chord and chord progression playing will have no choice but to constantly improve. I've seen it over and over again. And this is for everybody, for the whole spectrum of players. If you think this isn't for you, you're wrong. We all need to work on our chords. These are problems that beginners all the way through advanced players deal with: sloppy chord playing. And I've got an awesome exercise for each one of these 3 things. So take a look. Well, here's the first one. Chords take time. So I have a question for you. What's the most important beat in a measure? I'm listening. I think I heard you. I think I heard everyone say that at the same time. The most important beat. I got another question for you. What's the least important beat in a measure? Okay, that's the one that people differ in opinion on those things. But say it out loud. Important beat, least important beat. Beat one, right? Beat one's the most important. That's obvious. We feel that beat. It's strong. But it's also the reason why the last beat of the measure is the least important. Because the first beat is so strong, we're filled with anticipation for the next time it comes around. We can't wait for beat one to come around the next time. It's coming. I can feel it. It's not here yet, but I know it's kind of like Christmas. It's coming. It's coming. The listener is distracted with anticipation. So beat two, beat three, beat four. As we go through the measure, we want beat one to come around again. That time where the listener's distracted, that's when you can get away with a whole lot of stuff. In mid-song, there's a lot of things going on. We're dealing with things, and we're dealing with them in split seconds. We have to make movements. We have to make decisions very, very quickly. You've all seen that person who plays the full bar chord. They'll do a G, and then they have to go to like a D chord, right? And what they like to do is just take that same chord pattern there and just slide it all the way up to the 10th fret and then come back with that. They come back to G. They go back to the 3rd fret. We've all seen that. Those chords are always late. Always. That huge movement that's always put off to the last minute. Oh, okay. And they slide up there. It's always late when you see that. But then you take a look at your favorite player, the player who effortlessly moves from one chord to the next. And they're not doing big blocky chords. They're going from one pattern to the next pattern. It looks like it doesn't take any time. They just flow. But the truth is, it takes them time too to get between one chord to the next. So if we agree on the fact that playing chords takes up a little bit of the time of your song, where does that time come from? Where do we take it from? Well, if it's on beat one, if it's on a downbeat, you lose. It's over. By the time you're doing that, it's too late. The song has already moved on. So what we have to do is take our favorite chord progression and leave off the last beat of the song. The quarter note, okay, or the 8th note, the very last beat. Use that time to move from chord to chord because your fingers have to change and you may have to change position. That's going to be where we want it from. We are not going to step on beat one. We have to have it there. And that leaves us having to carve out time from the measure before. So we've got an exercise for you. This is called Carve Out the Beat exercise. I'm using 2 chords. I'm using C for 2 measures and then F for 2 measures. Easy C and F. I've even got my thumb wrapped around the side. I'm being very casual with these chords, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to use the easiest strumming pattern that everyone knows. The down, down, up, down, up. That's our chord progression. So we play that, and then all of a sudden, beat 3 comes along and you go, oops, what's this? I've got to play an F. So we get to the F, and then we have to quickly move our fingers back to the chord, and that's not always quick. So what we're going to do here, we're going to carve out the last 2 beats of the measure for 4 bars, and then we're going to carve out just the last beat of the measure for 4 bars, and then just the last 8th note of each measure. So this is going to show us where to change our fingers, and it's going to buy us some time, and then we can work up to the point where it's not even over an 8th note. It's a split second, but it's always right before the first beat. 1, 2, ready, go. Now doing it this way, I have tons of time. I carved out 2 whole beats for me to change, but I was always there. That F's right on 1. That's what we're looking for. So now we're going to bring back in that last strum that's on the and of 3. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. This gives me a whole beat to move from C to F. Doesn't take very long at all. Fingers were very easily moved back and forth. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make it even more difficult. If you can do it to that point, now this is the challenge right here. 1, 2, ready, go. That left me an eighth note amount of time to move my fingers from that C to that F. Now I picked easy chords just for this demonstration, but you all know some difficult chord progressions where it's hard to move past. You just take those difficult chords, plug them into this, and then you'll start to be able to realize, okay, I'm on beat 1 when that new chord comes in, no matter what. And the only thing, something's got to go, something's got to give. I'm going to sacrifice the last beat of the measure. This is how we work up to getting these chords smoothly moving from one to the next. But the bottom line is we're always playing right on 1. That's the most important beat. That's where we're not giving on that. We're always going to play right on beat 1. The next thing that we always have to remember when we want clear and clean and smooth sounding chord progressions is to feature the problem. You're playing a song, you know that difficult chord's coming up. You go, oh no, here comes that chord again. It may not even be a problem chord. It's where you're coming from. You might be in playing a G chord, and then you've got to go up to some bar chord there. It's the movement from where you were to where the new chord is, even if it's an easy chord, can be very difficult. So what we're going to do is whenever you find a difficult chord movement, we're going to practice that. We're going to practice that same chord movement over and over. That transition with all fingers coming down. Here's the key, at the same time. Let's talk about this. A lot of new guitar players, they'll play a chord and they'll always play first finger down, then second finger down, then third finger down. We all know it. You've done this. We've done this before. First finger down, second finger down, third finger down, strum the chord. That's a lot of time. So at some point you realize that's got to go. We can't take that time to put our chords down one finger at a time. What do we got to do? We got to learn the shape of the chords and be able to put our hand down on all of those notes, all the fingers coming down at the exact same time. That takes some preparation. That takes some practice. One of the potential reasons for this problem is because we haven't memorized the hand shape that it takes to play that chord at once. So when you come across a chord progression that's very tricky, always put that transition into practice by featuring the problem with this all fingers down exercise. It's a quarter note exercise. For this one, we're going to use G7 and D7. Now we're going to use the regular bar G7 here at the 3rd fret. We're also going to use this D7. It's right at the 3rd fret. It's right in the same area, but it's not a bar chord. This is the one that looks like Born on the Bayou, I think it is, right? So it looks like a C chord, open position C chord, but our pinky comes down in the middle, and we're just strumming the middle 4 strings. Okay, so we're going from bar chord to a fretted chord, bar chord to a completely fretted chord, bar chord to all fingers down, bar chord to all fingers down, right? This is, if you take a look at my hand, my thumb is completely in a different place. On the bar chord, it's in the back of the neck. On the D7th chord, it's wrapped around the side. Now, if I went one finger at a time, there's my G7. And then my D7, very long time to be able to get those chords working that way. So what we're doing is we're going to memorize these shapes. You can practice that without the guitar even being there. Pretend the guitar vanished, but you're still playing the chord. So G7, D7, G7, D7. I used to do this in school all the time. But the key is to come down with all the fingers in that shape. Okay. All fingers down, same time. All fingers down, same time. I'm doing it right now without the metronome. I'm not even playing it. I'm muting the strings, but I'm making these shapes, getting used to it. How do you do this? By repetition. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this with quarter notes. G7, D7, G7, D7, isolating those two difficult chords. 1, 2, ready, go. Notice all my fingers go down exactly at the same time. The more you do this, the more repetitions you do, the more your brain knows, okay, this is something that I need to remember. I need to be able to do this without thinking. And I can sit here and talk to you while I'm doing it. I'm not thinking at all. Okay. We have one last thing that we need to remember to make sure we play chord progressions that come out smoothly and cleanly. We're going to remember to practice without the guitar. In high school, I didn't have my guitar with me, but I was still practicing all the time. Couldn't take that away from me. And I had this right even back then. Long-term memory comes from repetition. I think, okay, well, what are the chords in that song? Okay, well, it's a C, a D, a G, and back to a C. I would sit at my desk and make those chord shapes. I'd hide my hand. I didn't want people to think that was weird or anything like that, but I was making those chord shapes all the time, getting used to playing them. Well, I have this exercise. It's called the CDED exercise. So let me explain it. This is a really cool exercise. We're going to take C in open position, and then we're going to go to D in open position, then to E open position, and back to D. We're going to do this first with the guitar. Okay, C, D, E, D. Now we're going to move to the area of the 3rd fret, and we're going to play the same chords, but voiced here. We're going to play C, which is an A-shaped chord. Let's see, in this area, a D is a C-shaped chord. All right, and then our E is a D-shaped chord here. It's like we've capoed up onto the 2nd or 3rd fret. And then we'll go back to the D chord, which is a C-shaped chord. C, D, E, D, C, D, E, D, C, D, E, D. This exercise gets really tough really quickly. Okay, let's move up to the 5th fret. So here, our C chord is going to be a G shape. Our D chord is going to be an A shape. And then our E chord is going to be a C shape. Okay, now we're going to move on to the 8th fret. So our C is going to be an E shape here. Our D is going to be a G shape. And our E is going to be A shape. Now let's move on up here. So now we're going to be at the 10th fret. We're going to do the same thing. What does our C look like here? Our C is a D shape, right? And then we have our D is a E shape. And then our E is a G shape. This is tough. I mean, it's really tough. And then we've made it all the way back to the top. So we had here's our first one, C, D, E, D. Then our second set of them, C, D, E, D. Our third, C, D, E, D. Our fourth, C, D, E, D. Our fifth, C, D, E, D. That's not an easy exercise. I'm feeling it in my hand. I'm trying to remember all what's the C here? What's the C here? That'll cure you from having to use a capo all the time. I'll tell you that. You'll be able to see your chord shapes as you go. So now you've done that exercise, try it again without the guitar. Try to imagine what fret you're on and make the shapes with your hand to get used to that repetition. You can do this anywhere. Usually you'll do it when no one's looking, right? But to be able to imagine what those shapes are at the different frets when the guitar isn't there makes it super easy when you are finally back with the guitar. And remember, I have a guide for you. It's called the Guide to Clear Sounding Chords. If your chords don't sound great, I've got this for you. It's free. It's an easy checklist. You'll know all the basics and every adjustment that you need to play clear and clean sounding guitar chords. That's at playguitaracademy.com/chord guide. But also join the Academy. The Academy is alive. It's on fire. It's where all of my part 2 videos from every one of my YouTube videos, I continue the lesson. I give you the tabs, the backing tracks, but the new exercises that you can use to master every one of the topics that we talk about on the videos. Plus our premium roadmap videos that take you step by step from beginner to advanced. And also the weekly group live lessons where I personally take you through all of the courses. It's been totally revamped and I'm really proud of it. Head on over to playguitaracademy.com and we can keep moving with all of this stuff. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today here on the podcast. I've got a little news before we move on. Group class Wednesday for the Academy. We're continuing the minor pentatonic. We're having a lot of fun with that. Got some licks that show off each of the patterns that we go through. And on Thursday, we have our coaching group class that we do. And we are working through chord tone and chord scale easy targeting. It's a course that I'm doing with them, but we're building it for you. As soon as we're through it, it's going to be available to you. So next week, I'm going to have a pre-list that you can get on. If you're interested in that, you get a little bit of a discount before it actually goes to the public. And you pre-order that with the link that I have next week. And that's all the news for today. I'm going to call it. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. If you've benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcast review. It's the best way to make sure we get this very valuable content to more guitar players around the world. And if more help, structure, and results in your guitar playing sound good to you, what are you waiting for? Join the Academy. It's the world's most exciting and carefully planned guitar system, and it's becoming a lot of fun. And together we will build your online home base for guitar. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.